You know, right. The podcast that uncovers the origin stories of some of the biggest names in sports, media, and entertainment. Nick Durst here, along with Joe Calabrese. And Joe, I know you're extremely excited for our guest today. He and I don't see eye to eye on anything sports related. He's a huge Devils fan, Nets fan, Yankee fan, three teams I loathe. So in honor of him, I broke out my Shea Stadium at Mets t-shirt here. But Joe, I know you're really pumped up, so I want you to let everybody know who we have with us here today.
Yes, he's somebody who I got to see a couple of weeks ago during our Memorial Day weekend kickoff event at Belmar at DJ's for WFAN. He's now a nighttime host for WFAN. Really happy about that. Live host for Bleacher Report, Yankees Nets super fan. So you've seen him bounce around, doing a couple podcasts here and there over the last couple of years, working with Jomboy, with Talking Yanks, Talking Nets, Bronx Pinstripes, the Bronx Baseball Podcast with Sweeney Murdy. So we're incredibly happy to have him on. Keith McPherson. Keith, what's up, pal? How you doing?
I'm good. What's up, guys? Can you hear me all right? Let me make sure. I don't know. I keep checking my mic and mic is good. Camera's good. I think I'm coming in all right. I
like
just
the
you guys
background.
like I got the screaming baby going on here. So I just had to put my son down. But yeah. Good morning, and I'm glad to join you. Let's get into it.
Absolutely. First question right out of the gate. Your boy dad, without the hashtag dad bod. How rewarding is that feeling knowing that you're a father now? And everybody has a story. So how does that feel knowing that you grew up the way you did?
It's crazy, man. Do you guys have kids?
No. Nick has
I,
one on
I,
the way
I
soon,
have a
though.
kid on the way.
Okay. So no one can prepare you for it. It's not something you can read or research or Google or watch on YouTube. Everyone's situation is different. What I say is it's challenging, but it gets rewarding, and it's wild. It's the number one priority for me now. I wake up in the morning, I check on him. Even when we were about to start this podcast at 10:45, I was in the Google Meet waiting for you guys. I'm like, where's the link? Is it Google Meet or Zoom? And you guys are in the Zoom, and then he starts screaming his head off, and I literally just went in there to like rock him to sleep, put him in the crib. Like, it's a 24-hour job. I just got back to WFAN this week and did my first two shows, but both nights I come home late. I come home at 2:45. I come home at 12:45. And I got to feed him. I'm on duty. My wife is sleeping, and I got to have a bottle ready to take care of him. So it's been wild. It's been rewarding, and I'm just excited to see the kid grow up. Now I'm thinking about the future really for him more so than myself. I've always been like a very motivated person, and been very like focused on my own career and my own success. And now it's shifted as a dad. I'm like thinking about what his life is going to be.
Yeah, obviously WFAN, great job, but there's no better job than being a parent, that's for sure. But what was it like for you growing up? I heard you were a star athlete. Do you regret not using that cannon quarterback arm to play baseball instead? Because it seems like the Yankees could need you right now.
Yeah, man. I always tell a story about my boy Zeke, my next door neighbor Eric. He ended up being a pitcher at West Virginia. And I was obviously a quarterback. We won a state championship and all that, but I was so locked in on football. The couple times that I went to the baseball field or the batting cage with them, it was too intense. His dad, shout out to Danny, his dad was like really like throwing the ball hard, hitting the ball hard, and drilling us. And I'm like, nah, this isn't for me. But if I would have stuck with it, I might have been a decent center fielder. Either way, it all worked out. Like, I focused on football. I got a football scholarship. I transferred schools, came back home and played football, got my degree in radio and television. And 11, 12 years later, I'm on radio and television now. So, yeah, no regrets. Everything happens how it's supposed to. I'm just blessed that I had some athletic ability paired with the drive and the work ethic to excel in sports in high school, get to the next level. And at the next level, I knew I wasn't going to the NFL, but I knew that I could apply, my intelligence and my skill set and my talent to what I wanted to do, which was work in sports.
So you attended James Madison first. What was the process like for you to decide to go there? Then how was the process to transfer, come back home, Monmouth University? You said you studied radio and TV at Monmouth. Obviously, it seems your career aspirations were always, let me go into the media realm, let me get into sports. I love sports. So what steps did you take to do that? Was there any internships you did while you were at either of those universities? And what were your first jobs initially coming out of college? Because it is very hard for college graduates to A, get a job right out of college, and B, get a job in something they want to do. So tell us about that time period for you in your life.
Well, when I went to JMU, I was not at the point where I was thinking about my career. Honestly, when I went to JMU, I went there for two reasons. They had won the national championship in 2005. So they got a lot of money thrown into their football program. They got a brand new turf field. They got the APC, the Athletic Performance Center. So I'm like, man, I'm going to a place where they're invested in football, and, you know, the facilities are brand new. And then also the school population was 68% female. And when I went on my winter visit and I went on my spring visit, like, there was girls everywhere. So as a 17-year-old kid, I went into James Madison University undeclared, not really thinking about a career and a major. But there I did declare my second year, and I went into communication PR, and I didn't like PR. The only thing I liked about PR is there was a ton of girls in the classes. There's like big auditorium, and like I said, it's like 70% girls at the school. But being down there in Virginia, it's not a media capital down there. I remember, you know, looking at their radio station and what they call SMAD. I forget the acronym, but it's something like something media arts design. And I was like, I don't want to pursue this here. And then I was the backup quarterback. I was third string quarterback. I was never playing. I was wearing the headset. I was getting drunk the night before games because I knew I wasn't getting in the game. And, you know, I just wasn't in the right, like, you know, mindset there. Like, I had, you know, gone to school thinking I was going to be a starting quarterback at the place, be a star quarterback, and not really worry about school. And it started to shift for me that, like, you know, some of these guys they're huge. They're monsters. They're 6'6", 6'7", 300 pounds. And, you know, I'm 6'2", 200 pounds. And I got a little homesick being in Virginia. It's different once you go south of the Mason-Dixon line. It's, you know, there's a lot of like hicks and people that hunt, and definitely a lot of racism. I remember being in the mall and seeing Confederate flags. This is like 2006, 2007. I'm like, I got to get the hell out of here. So I transferred back home to Monmouth, and I had known two things about Monmouth. Monmouth had just taken a step up where they could give out scholarships. They just went from, I think, like 0 scholarships to like 30 scholarships. So I was able to get one of those scholarships, and I knew that they had Hawk TV and WMCX on campus, a radio station and a TV station on campus. So I went into there and I declared communication, radio, television, and I was just trying to play. So I wasn't stuck on being a quarterback. There was already 4 quarterbacks on the roster. I came in as a quarterback athlete, and I returned kicks, returned punts, played slot receiver, played the X receiver, and just was trying to get on. But I ended up breaking my foot wrestling with my brother in the summer. And that was another, you know, just reality check. I broke my foot in the summer. I wasn't ready for the start of training camp. And I didn't really, you know, prosper. So I locked in on WMCX. I joined the radio club, and I really started to sharpen my skills on the radio, on air, and in front of the camera. And then I ended up dropping out and going back to school, and it took me a little extra time, but ultimately I graduated in the winter of 2011 with a radio and television degree, and it was quiet for me. I had no internship opportunities. I had no connections. Nobody in my family ever went to college. Nobody in my family ever graduated. Nobody in my family ever played any varsity sports. So I kind of was just like blazing my own trail and figuring it out. Luckily, I started DJing in high school at age 15, and I bought some equipment, and I started my own like DJ business, and that kind of kept me afloat for a little while, you know, hustling, doing birthday parties, doing the strip club, doing private events. And honestly, my big break was when I was working at Guitar Center, which, you know, worked I worked there because I had the DJ experience. I know how to like hook up all professional audio equipment. I still have DJ equipment, turntables, microphones, speakers. I worked at Guitar Center for about a year, maybe like 8 months to a year. And I applied for the MLB Fan Cave. And once I got in the Fan Cave, which was, 25,000 people submitting to be part of this, like, real world type of experience for Major League Baseball in the city. Derek Jeter's final season, 2014, I got selected to be the Yankee fan in the cave. And honestly, that was my in. I really figured everything out each step of the way after that. So no internship opportunities. My big break was submitting a 2-minute video about who I was and my fandom and getting in that way with the MLB Fan Cave.
You parlayed the MLB Fan Cave later on in your career here into a TV gig. We'll get to that later. But you spent a few years working primarily in social media and doing digital marketing for a bunch of major companies, MTV, Fubo TV, Rock Nation. So what was going through your mind at that period, and what did you like and not like about each stop there?
So I've always been a digital guy. I've always been an internet guy. I've always been someone like I used to take my computer apart. I was on MySpace all day. I was coding and doing HTML stuff when that was first popular. I was always on the computer, chat rooms on AOL and AIM, and I was able to build a decent following on Twitter in 2009 and then Instagram in 2011. And like I mentioned, my DJ business, I had a DJ group called Allied Entertainment. And when you're a DJ, MC, and you have a group of DJs you work with, the number one thing is promoting. Like, hey, we're at this bar, or hey, we're doing this party. And I use social media that way to, to market. So I got a lot of experience doing that. And I was able to show that to the Fan Cave. And the whole thing about the Fan Cave is they wanted to get younger. Like, baseball is still behind the curve. But back in 2014, they were just stupid. Like, they didn't let you clip their baseball games and put even just like a home run or a wild catch on Twitter. You couldn't even make a GIF of it. Like, they hoarded all of the social media content. But in the Fan Cave, they let us create original content on Snapchat, Vine, Twitter, Instagram. And this is before you could go live. This is before you could make, like, the stuff that we have now for social media for these kids to make. You could not do all of that. You could post a still image. You couldn't even post a video more than a minute on Instagram back then. But I always was crafty with that type of stuff, with computer stuff. And when I was in the Fan Cave, there was a TV show called Off the Bat. And Off the Bat filmed every Tuesday, and it aired Tuesday nights on MTV2. And there was a woman named Brittany Travis who saw me in the Fan Cave. And then when I went home for 5.5 months after the Fan Cave, applying to jobs, striking out, nobody hitting me up, sending cover letters, resumes, going on LinkedIn, reaching out to people, nothing for 5.5 months. I was this close to getting a job at the Home Depot down the street from my mom's house. And then Brittany Travis from MTV2 hit me up for a social media coordinator position. I came into the city. I interviewed with just her. She put me on to round 2 with the like big wigs. And that was my first entry into 1, a New York City job, 2, a corporate job, 3, just like a bigger opportunity working at MTV2 as a social media coordinator. And I really had no experience outside of being an MLB Fan Cave and what I built for my own personal social channels and my DJ stuff. But I was able, like I said, I was able to parlay that into working at MTV for 2.5 years, crushing it for them. I worked with Nick Cannon. I worked with Charlemagne. I built Charlemagne's social channels for his show, Uncommon Sense. I was the one that literally made the accounts for Wild 'N Out that have millions of followers now. I was the one that said, hey, these kids don't watch television. They don't care about 8, 9 Central to tune in. They need it on demand. Let's clip up the show and put it on YouTube. Let's put it on Facebook where they could watch it all the time. And then the numbers started to go crazy. And after 2.5 years at MTV, I was making $36,000 a year. And I think I got up to like $51,000 a year, but it wasn't enough. I'm commuting from the shore area every day, 2 hours. Being in New York is expensive. Lunch itself costs $20 a day. I just kind of got frustrated that I was doing a lot of great things inside MTV, but when you're in a machine like that, you don't necessarily get recognized. You're anonymous. And I just quit. 2.5 years went by, and I felt like finally I have enough experience on my resume where I quit. I drove Lyft Uber for about a month and a half, and then I got my job with Fubo TV. And the smart thing that I did was I only applied to sports-related social media jobs. ESPN, Bleacher Report, whatever. Fubo TV at the time was not as popular as they are now, but they needed to hire an actual social media person, and they interviewed like 7 people before me. I think they said I was the 8th person. And what they liked about me was my sports knowledge, because I came in and I picked apart all the things that they did wrong on their social media, like just even writing captions wrong. I remember they had a picture of Cody Bellinger, and they wrote in the caption that it was Josh Harrison. And what it was they took some pictures from Getty Images and they just made a mistake. And I'm like, how the hell do you not know Cody Bellinger versus Josh Harrison? Completely different players. And they were almost embarrassed to the point where they're like, boom, you got the job. And I didn't really get to work there for long, but I helped build their social channels and get them off the ground, putting my thoughts, my knowledge, and my like American sports knowledge behind their brand. They were a soccer brand looking to get people to come to their app to watch NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB. And I was crushing it, man. And Rock Nation came calling. This girl reached out to me from Rock Nation. I didn't even work at Fubo a full year. And when Jay-Z comes calling, I'm a hip hop guy, I'm a sports fan, and I'm a football player. They gave me the opportunity to be the digital marketing manager of their sports agency side, but specifically working with the NFL players like Saquon Barkley, Leonard Fournette, Todd Gurley. Like, there was no way I was going to say no to that. I thought it was a dream job. I quit that job in 3 months. It was a nightmare. I hated it. And then I also was just seeing guys rise like Jomboy that you mentioned. My guy, Joe's McFly, Bronx Pinstripes. I just was seeing even Hubs from Barstool. I'm seeing all of these Yankees content creators grow their followings and their podcasts and their YouTube. And I'm a little minion behind the scenes at Rock Nation, getting yelled at, getting told what to do, being like, you know, an errand boy / like everybody's social media guy. They want you to be a graphic designer. They want you to be a copywriter. They want you to be a scheduler. And I just was like, fuck it, I'm out. I quit that job in 2018. We're coming up on 5 years in July since I quit that job. And that was like my NFL turning point. Like, if you ever watched that show, NFL Turning Point, where they show you the point in the game where the game changed, like that was the game changer for me, because I was unemployed. It was summertime and I had to figure it out. I bought a new MacBook. I bought a new camera. I still have that camera. I got a different MacBook by now, but I was kind of thrown into the fire. And I started vlogging. I started going to as many Yankee games as I could. I started doing content in my house. I built this whole like sports wall, and I went full-fledged into it. And I'd like to say the rest is history, but I'm writing that history right now.
So definitely know the struggles here of being in these places, and they expect you to do everything. It's awful how some people get treated. So appreciate you sharing that with us. But like you said, you end up doing the vlogging and stuff. You end up doing the stuff with Jomboy. So how did that come about? And then how did the WFAN opportunity ultimately present itself? Steve Summers, absolute legend. He's retiring. How did you hear about perhaps applying? And ultimately, when you find out, hey, Keith, it's going to be you, how shocked were you? Because a lot of the times when they're hiring people there, they're hiring from within. They're taking former interns who are producers or board ops and promoting them. So tell us about that crazy time for you in your life.
So with the social media experience that I had, that's all on like LinkedIn and a resume. Jomboy didn't ever look at my LinkedIn or resume. Man, I was supporting Jomboy when he had the little cartoon character. Like his avatar, his profile picture was not his face. It was this little like emoji cartoon character of himself that like I think Snapchat used to make, like you could customize yourself. And I remember Jomboy going viral, yelling at Chris Carter when Jomboy used to live out west. He went to the Oakland A's, the Oakland Coliseum, to see the Yankees, and Chris Carter sucked that year. And he went viral from yelling at him because he like was yelling at him and he hit a home run. So I was rocking with Jomboy just from Yankees Twitter. Honestly, I was one of the first people on Yankees Twitter before it was even called Yankees Twitter, because I was in the fan cave in 2014, and everybody at MLB was telling me, you got to tweet during the games. You got to tweet during the games. And I'm like, nah, I'm superstitious. I watch the game. I don't tweet during the game. And they're like, yeah, but you got to build your following and promote the cave and blah, 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 blah. So I started specifically tweeting about the Yankees a lot and connecting with people there. That's 2014. Jomboy starts to rise in like 2016. Then he starts talking Yanks, Jomboy Media 2017 or whatever. And we're just like acquaintances. Like we never met, but we know each other online. Everybody has internet friends like that, right? Joe's McFly. I end up running into Joe's McFly at a Bronx Pinstripes event. Bronx Pinstripes, I was a fan of from their blog era, from going to bronxpinstripes.com. I actually invited them to the fan cave, 5 of their writers, to watch a game with me. That's how I got connected with them. And I started doing like Instagram takeovers, Snapchat takeovers, and like digital stuff for them. So we're all kind of just like friends and in the Yankee space online and working together, right? So now I'm bringing it back around. They didn't know, Jomboy and these guys didn't know that I had the resume that I had. So I did 1 year with Bronx Pinstripes of a podcast called George's Box. I did that with JJ from Barstool. I was one and done. I made $0 from it. And I kind of just walked away from it because I felt like there was business happening behind the scenes, but like I didn't make any money, and I didn't have a seat at the table with the business. But like, you're using my voice, my image, my likeness, you're making like graphics with my face in it, and you're profiting off of it. So I did 30 episodes and then I walked away from it. I was still unemployed, right? That was 2019. I quit my job in 2018. I'm still unemployed. I'm driving Lyft, Uber. I was working at a restaurant. I'm selling my Jordans. I'm selling my collector's items, like on this other wall. Like I've got all of my like bobbleheads and fucking here's my newest edition, Paul Neal signed baseball. Like I'm going through my things. I'm selling them. I'm selling some of my DJ equipment just to survive. I reach out to Jomboy in 2019 after the 2019 season, and I'm like, listen, bro, if you need a guy, I'm available. Let's talk. We get on FaceTime, and I send him my resume, and he's like, oh, I had no idea you worked at MTV, Fubo TV, Rock Nation doing social media. He's like, we have an actual company now. Like, we can hire people, and we could use a hand, scheduling tweets and coming up with content and creating videos. And we're trying to get Talking Nets to be a thing. Like, here's the Talking Nets brand, if you could build that. And Joe's McFly just signed with us, so he's doing Pinstripe Strong. If you want to join him on the podcast. I said, sure, we're off and running. I honestly worked with them from November, December, January for free. And then Jomboy launched the Bronx office, and he called me. He's like, I want you to be in the video. And we shot the video on January 17th, and it started doing numbers on YouTube, Twitter. People were super excited about it. That night, Jomboy's like, okay, I can hire you at $15 an hour as an intern salary. I'm unemployed. I'm like, cool, bro. We're off and running. I worked with Jomboy for 2 years, and the pandemic hits. Honestly, I worked with Jomboy for 2 months, and the pandemic hits. So from January 17th to March 15th, the world ended like March 11th, 12th. Like, I remember watching the NBA game, and they like stopped that NBA game. I think it was like Utah versus Oklahoma City. But Jomboy made me full-time with a full-time salary as a social media manager, content creator, like that week. But then everything is shut down. Now we're remote. Now it's like, we literally don't know what is going to go on. We have a sports company. They just canceled all the sports, but we started grinding it out. We started doing podcasts and getting creative, whatever. And then once we got back outside, I remember telling Jomboy and Jake, because I'd already done some stuff with the Yes Network. I had like 3 Yes Network commercials, and the Yes Network had featured me on their social media. And I remember telling them, like, yo, once we're back outside, I'm a stadium guy. Like, I go to the stadium, I vlog, I do my thing. I'm like, I'm not going to be able to sit behind the computer with you guys and like, build out your stuff. Like, I literally was building the YouTube channel. I was building at Jomboy Media, Twitter, at Talking Baseball, at Talking Yanks. I was doing all that stuff behind the scenes to help their brand without asking to be on camera. But I knew once we got back on the scene, my own personal brand was going to grow. They weren't necessarily interested in my personal brand. It's business. I understand. They hired me to be, a background guy, a minion, kind of like I was at Rock Nation and some of these other places. but I just, I could just feel it. I could just tell. I'm like, people are starting to get to know me. They're starting to hear me. And like, I've got something here, and I've been like, working on this. So fast forward to now, the pandemic is 2020, 2021. We get back in the stadium. Now it's August of 2021. They go on Moose and Maggie on August 6th. I remember this stuff exactly. Talking Yanks basically takes over Moose and Maggie from 10 to 2, and it sounds like their podcast. It's Jomboy and Jake. I loved it because I was a fan of Talking Yanks. I'm working with these guys, and I'm like, yo, Jomboy Media is on WFAN. I'm like, if they got on WFAN, there's a chance that we all could have a spot on WFAN. Maybe they do a weekly spot. Maybe we feel like I just, the optimism I had because they broke through from fan-made media to like the actual media. I'm like, we're on our way. For some reason, whatever conversations they had in early August with WFAN, that was the last time they were ever on WFAN. Right after that, Spike Eskin sends me an email. He also hit up Joe's McFly and I think one other person from Jomboy Media, I forget who, about doing a tryout / audition, filling in on the overnight, whatever. I'm like, yo, I have a radio television degree. I used to be on my college radio 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, the summer of 2011. 10 years later, the summer of 2021, I get asked to do a 11 to 2 spot on Wednesday, August 25th. I'm like, this is it. This is it. And I go in with this whole agenda of talking about the Yankees winning streak. I remember the Yankees had like a 12 or 13 game winning streak. They had just beat the Royals. They were headed to Oakland. And I remember my take was like, Oakland sucks. Oakland Coliseum sucks. They're going to lose in Oakland. It's always a house of horrors with that stupid band and the Vuvuzelas and, their fans. And that night, Taijuan Walker was pitching for the Mets against the Dodgers. And I think they pulled him early. Maybe I think Luis Rojas pulled him early, and the Dodgers beat the Mets 3-2. And Mets fans were calling up the station to just like lay in on the Mets and their manager. And now I'm thrown in the fray. I'd never taken calls. I'd never done, but I figured it out and I got through. And next thing I hear from WFAN is like, they've never gotten that much social media traction because we had Yankees fans on Yankees Twitter that rep me, like, keep this on. And then also Mets fans that were like, we don't give a fuck about like this Yankee stuff. The Yankees didn't even play tonight. Who is this random guy on our radio station? And it created a little bit of buzz. But I didn't really hear anything from Spike or WFAN. I don't want to say ghosted me, but they kind of just were like, okay, good job. Like, so Labor Day comes. I'm supposed to go out west to San Francisco to help my sister in her business. I canceled on her. I'm like, I can't leave. I'm like, I was hitting up Spike. I was like, I wasn't confident in my audition. I'm like, if you have an opening, like, I'd like to try again. Like, please. And I told my sister, I got to stay in New York. I just was on WFAN. If they need me to come in for 5 minutes or 5 hours or whatever it is, I need to be ready. Nothing. Didn't hear anything. So then early October comes and Spike does get back to me. And he's like, I think you and I are going to have a working relationship. We're moving some things around. We've had some meetings. We played your tape from that night. And we're thinking about making you the nighttime host. Steve Summers is going to retire. And we're going to put you in his spot. And this is October. This is like around the end of the baseball season. I'm like, nah. I'm like, I don't think that's a good idea. I'm like, I have no radio experience. Steve Summers is a legend. The schmoo. I'm like, I can't replace the schmooze. Me there, like me here, you there, all of his catchphrases, his monologues, his opening stuff. I'm like, hell no, that's probably not a good idea, bro. That's not going to go over well. So I just left it alone. I let them handle the business. And I ended up going to Puerto Rico on my honeymoon, which was like my faux honeymoon. I owed my wife a trip somewhere because after our actual wedding in July of 2021, July 10th, 2021, the All-Star game was that weekend. And we got on a flight from LaGuardia to Denver because I wanted to go to the All-Star game. All-Star game is a baseball festival. It's sick. So my wife went with me, but she's like, we got to go somewhere tropical when the season ends. The World Series ended like November 3rd, and we went to Puerto Rico. And I'm in Puerto Rico, and Spike calls me, and he's like, Steve is ready to let the world know that, like, he's retiring. He wants to do his final schmooze, and, like, he doesn't want to sit on this anymore. Like, we're not waiting until you get back from your trip. Like, Steve is going to say what he's going to say on air, and we're going to alert the New York Post and send the press release. And I'm just like, okay. And they pressed that button, and my life changed. My phone blew up. I remember going to eat sushi with my wife in Puerto Rico, and I just like started crying, man. I just like couldn't help it. It was like podcaster, fan taps podcaster, fan taps podcaster to replace Summers. And like I said, I at first was like, I don't think that's a good idea, but I was ready for the challenge, and you know, the rest is the history that we're currently living in.
I love that story, man. You are a success story. You transition that passion as a fan into a legitimate career, and you are representative of the Yankees fan base and the Nets as well. So kudos to you. Last question from me. You brought everything full circle, like I mentioned before, with the MLB Man, the Fan Cave. What was it like co-hosting a weekly show with
Daily show.
a daily show with former,
off
you know, our
base.
right guest. Yeah, with our girl LG Red, Lauren Gardner, MLB Off Base and MLB Network. What was it like doing that, and who approached you about that?
So, I mean, I always loved MLB Network. I used to go into the Jomboy media office in the Bronx and put MLB Network on our big TV that we had in our like living room area. I remember Jomboy being like, "You watch MLB Network?" I'm like, "Yeah, bro. I watch all their shows all day." And he's like, you know, Jomboy and those guys were like alternate way of talking about baseball, so they never really watched. And you know, fast forward to me being on WFAN, I came into WFAN and the lockout happened. So there was a lot of time where like we had to kind of improvise. There was no spring training updates and stuff. And I did some shows talking about like, have you ever gone to a baseball game by yourself, which is like standard for me now. But I remember the first time I did it, I thought it was weird. And then I loved it. And I was like, this is a lot easier than trying to get a group of people together. I remember I had like Mickey Rivers on. I just really started leaning into some baseball stuff on air. And a couple of the producers were listening. And I went down to Tampa. I joined John and Susan on the spring training broadcast once everything got back going. And by the time I got home, I got an email from one of the producers like, "Hey, we're putting together a new show called Off Base. We have a cast of 3. We're doing the rehearsals. We want to see what it looks like with 4. We love your voice. We love your passion. We think you can add something to the show." So I come into the two rehearsals. I crushed the rehearsals. I just like, I don't know. I had like one-liners and just like energy, and they offered me a deal, and they made me the 4th host. And it was LG, Xavier Scruggs, Hannah Kaiser, and myself with this first of its kind show called Off Base, which is literally like baseball, but off base. Like we're talking about what the players wear and what they posted on Instagram, and it's supposed to attract a younger audience. And I did like, I don't even know how many episodes. I want to say, because it was like every day. This was like 40 episodes. And it changed my life. I was on a nationally televised TV show, and at night doing a radio show, finally using my radio and TV degree the way I had hoped, finally actually making some money and not being broke, not having to drive Lyft Uber, not having to work at a restaurant, sell my belongings to survive. And 2022 was a great year. Working with LG. LG is a pro's pro. I can't wait to see her. I'll be back on Off Base June 22nd. Xavier Scruggs is somebody I look up to as a family man, as a pro, as a guy that is always working. He does MLB radio, he does ESPN baseball, he does MLB network stuff. And yeah, I'll be back on the show in 2 weeks from right now. But I had a kid. So it's like, you know, when I let the producers know that I was having a kid, they knew better than me. They have kids. I was like, I really still want to do the show, but I'm having a kid. And they're like, "You're not going to be able to do a daily baseball show with a kid." Even when we started this, I'm like, I had to change my kid's diaper and put him down for a nap. Like, kids don't work on schedules. There's no schedules, and it's unpredictable. So I had to step out of that, but I still watch the show. I still think it's great. Ariel Epstein filled Hannah Kaiser's spot, and they filled my spot with actual baseball players. Like, they put Pedro Martinez in that seat. Rajay Davis was on yesterday. Cliff Floyd, Jake Peavy, Yonder Alonso. I'm like, that's a good look to actually have like all these baseball players that come in the building anyway in that chair. And yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back on Off Base. It was a blessing to be in, you know, a first of its kind show. And for me to like actually manifest like getting on radio and television like I had dreamed of, it was just full circle for me.
Well, Keith, we thank you so much for your time. We loved hearing your story. Congratulations on everything and continued success. And we appreciate you joining us here on You Know I'm Right. So that's going to do it here for this episode of You Know I'm Right for our very special guest, Keith McPherson, my co-host, Joe Calabrese. I'm Nick Durst, and this has been You Know I'm Right.